Hello fun people, I'm Isaac Carlson, and in Avatar: The Way of Water, we learn that Spider's biological father is, spoiler alert, Miles Quaritch. He's the previous commander of the RDA's security operations, the colonel who destroyed Home Tree, and the man who led an attack against the Tree of Souls. But who was Spider's mother, and what was she doing on Pandora? How did she die? And has Spider ever found someone to fill that void in his life? Well, in Avatar: The High Ground, a comic book that brings to life key events on Pandora prior to The Way of Water, we learn that Spider's mother was Paz Socorro. She was a Marine who came to Pandora to be a pilot. While Marines weren't supposed to have relationships with one another, eventually that broke down when the highly sought-after Socorro began an intimate relationship with Quaritch. As Jake explained, you put people on a planet a million miles from the nearest bar and things happen, and they definitely did. Eventually, Paz got pregnant, and the result was Miles Socorro, one of the first humans to ever be born on Pandora. Since the colonel was breaking procedure by having a relationship with one of his soldiers, Paz had the child on her own. But of course, everyone knew who the father really was, especially since she named their son after him. No consequences arose against Miles Quaritch though, and the same thing can be said for most of the men who were having children at Hell's Gate. Apparently, Spider was not the first or last child that had a fatherless birth on Pandora. By the way, if you like to read through all of the Avatar guidebooks, novels, and comics that I referenced throughout this video, I've left all of them linked in the description for you below. Now, since Socorro aligned with Quaritch, of course she followed him into the Battle of the Hallelujah Mountains, where she was killed by a Na'vi arrow to the chest. Spider's mother and his father suffered the same fate, leaving him all alone. As a baby, Spider couldn't be sent back to Earth in cryostasis, so he was forced to grow up on Pandora. One of the families Jake allowed to remain at Hell's Gate eventually fostered Spider. The McCoskers took him in, but they weren't really great people. Nash and Mary McCosker were playful, cooperative, and kind at times, but they definitely didn't understand or fully trust the Na'vi, and they were often frustrated by Spider's constant adventures in the rainforest with the Sully children. There were times when Nash was even fairly hostile to the indigenous when he was working to keep Hell's Gate running, and those feelings only escalated when the RDA returned and threatened the humans who had remained on Pandora. The McCoskers were quick to reconsider their alliance with Jake and the Na'vi, and they eventually completely betrayed them, going so far as to imprison Jake and Neytiri's children. Needless to say, Spider never embraced his foster mother and father, and instead chose a life within the rainforest of Pandora where his chosen family lived. He was born on Pandora, he spoke the language, he understood how to be one with the forest, and Jake even admits that in a lot of ways Spider is more Pandoran than he'll ever be. Spider spent his childhood with the Sully children, and in Kiri's eyes, Spider was her family. From her perspective, they were war orphans who had to stick together. And for Miles, he appreciated the strong, loving, and consistent presence of Kiri. But even in Spider's chosen family, he had issues with the mother. His biological mother died fighting on the wrong side of a war. His foster mother betrayed him and the people he loved. And the mother of his found family, Neytiri, openly hated him. Neytiri saw him as an outsider who should remain with the Sky People. She couldn't move past who his father was and how his species continued to destroy her home. She saw him as trouble, and Spider felt the disdain. He knew Neytiri despised him and did not see him as her own child in the same way the rest of the Sullys viewed him as their brother. The only family he felt he had was Kiri, Took, and Loak. Otherwise, he had no family, until of course, Quaritch returned to Pandora. But fun people, what do you think? Will Neytiri ever embrace Spider as her own child, or will Quaritch eventually fill that hole in his life? To see more Avatar videos like this one, consider subscribing. And if you'd like to venture to Pandora, the world of Avatar, and Walt Disney World yourself, consider checking out my travel agency, Imaginative Travel, which is linked down below. Over there, we can guide you through the process of planning and booking your next Disney vacation at no cost to you. And finally, thanks for watching, Siva Ko, and have a magical day.